It was a chilly Halloween evening in the forest, and Ricky the raccoon, Finn the fox, and Bella the bunny were getting ready for a night of candy collecting fun. They dressed up in their spookiest costumes, Ricky as a sneaky pirate with a small sword, Finn as a goofy vampire with a cape to beg for him, and Bella as a cute ghost with a white sheet draped over her ears. "Let's go find some candy," Ricky said, swinging his candy bag excitedly. The friends set off into the woods, where the trees cast long shadows in the fading light. The crisp air was filled with the sound of crunching leaves underfoot, and little flickering lanterns lit their way. It didn't take long for them to find their first house, a cozy, pumpkin-covered cottage belonging to Mrs. Hedgehog. "Trick or treat," they called in unison as Mrs. Hedgehog opened the door, smiling kindly at the little trick-or-treaters. She dropped handfuls of candy into their bags, and the friends continued on their way. As they wandered deeper into the forest, they reached a part of the woods they hadn't been to before. The trees were taller, and strange, spooky noises echoed through the branches. The wind howled, and shadows seemed to dance on the ground. Ricky, always a brave one, led the way, though even he was starting to feel a little uneasy. "Maybe we should head back," Finn said, clutching his cape as it flapped in the wind. "Oh, come on! We can't be scared on Halloween," Ricky said with a grin. "The best candy is always in the spookiest places." Suddenly, they heard a rustling sound behind them. The friends froze, their ears perking up. "Did you hear that?" Bella whispered, her voice trembling slightly under her ghost sheet. Before they could respond, a glowing jack-o'-lantern floated out from behind the bushes. Its wicked grin and eerie glow made their fur stand on end. "Run!" Finn shouted, his cape flapping wildly as they all dashed away. They sprinted through the woods, their candy bags bouncing against their sides. After what felt like forever, they stopped, panting and out of breath. They looked around, but the glowing pumpkin was nowhere in sight. What was that?" Bella asked, her voice shaky. Ricky, catching his breath, looked around, and then burst into laughter. "It was just a prank. Look!" He pointed to a nearby tree where a squirrel was giggling, holding the glowing jack-o'-lantern on a string. "You guys scared us to death," Finn laughed, now feeling relieved. The squirrel hopped down and handed them some extra candy as a peace offering. The friends laughed off their fright and continued their Halloween adventure. visiting a few more houses and collecting enough candy to fill their bags. As the moon rose higher in the sky, they finally made their way back to Bella's burrow to share their treats and giggles over the spooky prank. "That was the best Halloween ever," Bella said, munching on a caramel apple. "Yeah, who knew a spooky adventure could be so much fun?" Ricky added with a grin, his pirate sword sticking out of his candy bag. The three friends agreed that Halloween wasn't just about candy. It was about facing your fears, sharing laughs, and enjoying every spooky surprise the night had to offer.